Okay, so I'm going to get started. Um, Welcome everybody. This is the first event of Inspirational Sailing Stories, and hopefully you'll find some of the stories inspirational. Um, I'm the first of there's going to be eight speakers, which is a few more than originally was planned. I've been able to add two extra evenings, two extra inspirational speakers as well. So that's very exciting, and hopefully you're either already signed up to join for those evenings, or you might consider after this evening joining us for at least some, if not all, of the other evenings that are planned. I've got everybody on mute right now, except for me. And I just ask if you have any questions that you could type either your name into the chat, or I have a question. That's absolutely fine as well. Or you could even type the question into the chat as well. And then I think I'll wait to answer those questions if you have questions um, until the very end. So you're welcome if you want to kind of, if you think of a question as we're going along, and you don't want to forget that question, you're welcome to type it in the chat, and I'll at the end of the presentation, I'll go back to the top of the chat and start at the top with the questions, or you're also welcome to wait until the actual end of the presentation. I'm kind of hoping to keep my part of the presentation short-ish, maybe around 15, 20 minutes, followed by a question and answer. So I'm going to get started. I'm just going to share. In fact, before I share my screen, I guess it says my name, but my name is Tom Winskell, and I am I have some sailing experience. I started sailing when I was very young. I learned with my family, and then I actually competed a little bit in England, where I learned um, when I was younger. And I kind of take up some amateur racing as well. I've done not very much offshore sailing, but I've done some navigation. I was actually an officer in the Royal Navy, and part of my job was actually doing navigation. And so I have quite I guess, a high level of knowledge of seamanship and rules and regulations for avoiding collisions, and how you should act at sea as any kind of vessel, and also navigating and finding your way using various either technology and also paper charts. I was in the Navy from 2004 to 2010, and that doesn't seem that long ago. I mean, I guess it is a long time ago, but we were still using paper charts, which seems kind of crazy that the military would use paper charts. But yeah, we were using paper charts, which was kind of crazy. I, there's a couple places that I went to. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole, but it did go through the Suez Canal a couple times, which is the passage from the Mediterranean through past Egypt, or down through Egypt, and out into the Indian Ocean eventually, through a couple other smaller seas and into the Indian Ocean, and that was a pretty interesting experience. I've been pretty far north, up to Norway, and not too far south, or really across the Atlantic. Mainly operated in the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. Um, and then I moved to Canada, and here in Canada, I have spent a lot of time being a sailing coach. I started a sailing school called Sailing Fanatics in 2013, which does seem like a long time ago, but not really that long ago. And I've also had some other sailing experiences while I've been living in North America. And one of those I'm going to talk about tonight, and I'll kind of explain why in a few minutes. So I'm going to share my screen because I have some slides I would like to share. Hopefully everyone can see that, no problem. So I just wanted to share a couple slides. These are actually, I wanted to mention part of the reason I'm doing this or I'm organizing this is to actually raise some money for a water sport camp in Toronto. There's a water sport camp that runs in the Outer Harbor that is for young people age 7 to 17. It actually offers those young people 3 different sports: rowing, windsurfing, and sailing. And the really awesome thing about this water sport camp is that about 100 young people across the summer, which maybe that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's about 1/3 of the capacity of the camp. So about 30% when the camp is running at full capacity. So about 100 young people are coming to that camp for free. And that's thanks to the clubs that are actually present in the Outer Harbor. But we're also able to get money from donations, and I would like to do something awesome. So to do some presentations that are interesting for everybody, but also to be able to raise a little bit of money to send kids who might not otherwise have an opportunity to camp. So any money raised through this, any money that anyone pays towards coming to these talks will go to that camp and will directly help kids to experience water sports for no charge. And I threw up a couple pictures, which I think are kind of fun. So the other aim of this series, I mean, it's dark and cold outside, so you probably all noticed that, and we're not all leaving our houses very much. I also really like Zoom because I don't have to wear a mask. I'm a teacher, and I wore a mask all day, and I'm not even, you know, I know some people who are healthcare professionals they're wearing masks all day. So you know, I like Zoom. I don't have to wear a mask. But we're all stuck at home. It's cold. It's dark outside, and we can't really go sailing right now. And so I wanted to have something interesting where we could all get together, and I'm pretty excited to hear from some of the people who are scheduled to talk over the next few evenings. But also I wanted to kind of broaden everybody's, and certainly mine as well, broaden our horizons as sailors a little bit, and kind of have people come and talk who have done something a little bit different with sailing. So not just you know, racing or sailing in small boats, but you know, crossing oceans, sailing around the world, buying a small boat and sailing you know, down the coast of North America. Sailors who you know, I would consider to just be kind of you know, your average everyday folk who've done something pretty awesome. And I think I hope that this might be inspiring for some of us to kind of get out and do something a little bit different in the world of sailing in the next few years. Maybe me included. We'll see. So I just wanted to run through the people who are speaking. I know he's on the call right now. Paul Howard is set to speak on March 3rd. I probably could not list off all of the places that Paul has been to on a sailboat. you can see in this picture that there's an iceberg in the background. I think you have to get pretty far north to see icebergs. So even just this photo is impressive to me. So he's going to tell us about some of his round the world sailing exploits. Very excited to hear from Paul, because I think I probably don't even know some of the things that he's achieved in the world of sailing. Oh, I skipped one. So Jamie Ingle, she's a sailing instructor from Toronto. She's also a pilot, kind of neat fact. Nothing to do with sailing, but she's a pilot too. She with her partner, she bought a and you can kind of see from the picture that's quite a small sailboat. Bought a pretty small sailboat in Toronto, and sailed it out through the St. Lawrence Seaway down the coast of North America, and sailed around in the Bahamas. I think the Bahamas. I think she'll be able to tell you more information, but did quite a few miles on a very small sailboat. A very accessible. They bought a small sailboat and they went for it. So I think this could be an inspirational story, because it could be something that is a possibility for many of us. Gaurav Shinde is a new addition to the lineup, and I'm very excited that he's on the call tonight as well. And I'm very excited that he's going to be telling us about his story, perhaps a little bit about how he got to where he is, and where he's going next. That's Gaurav's sailboat that he tells me is at PCYC right now. Gaurav is planning to do the Golden Globe race in 2022. The Golden Globe race is a round the world solo race using only older equipment. So there's no new technology or modern technology. I think I hear a lot about modern technology and modern boats and how they're flying around the world at super fast paces. These guys doing the Golden Globe, they're taking 200 days, and they don't have much with them, and they're not stopping. So they're just going continuously. So this is a pretty impressive, feat that Gaurav has signed up for. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that from him. Sarah Douglas is an Olympic sailor. She's going to talk to us a little bit about racing. She does that a lot, so she probably has some really interesting stories and tips for those of us who are interested in racing. So excited to hear from her as well. Alex Bizko is going to talk to us as well. Alex, just very varied experience. Alex does a whole bunch of random things. You can see here he's sailing in an exotic place on a catamaran. He's a sailing instructor in Toronto. He's also done some pretty wacky sailing down the coast of Morocco on a trimaran that was built out of sticks, I think. He probably has some crazy stories about that. I know he has some crazy stories about teaching kids in warmer waters as well. So very interesting. And he's also just psyched about sailing. So he is the person who can get everybody excited about sailing. So excited to hear from him too. Diane Reed is going to come and talk. Diane is she has done something like 100,000 nautical miles of offshore sailing. Again, like super varied experience with offshore sailing. The picture that's actually up on the screen is a Clipper round the world yacht race sailboat. So the Clipper is something that actually anybody can sign up for, and anybody can sail any leg of the Clipper round the world yacht race. So she has skippered one of those boats on 2 legs of a race. So if you're interested in offshore sailing, she would be a great person to talk to. Last person who's on the lineup, Chris Stanmore Major. He is. This is a picture of his boat. He is, again, another offshore sailor, high-level offshore sailor, participated in a number of races. But I think one of the interesting things that he does is he actually started a company, a race charter company, where you can actually go on one of his boats and sail offshore races. So it'll be interesting to learn about the opportunities that his company has in terms of, if you want to get involved and do some kind of offshore racing, he probably has some information on that. So again, another impressive sailor. So yeah, just coming back to the idea, like trying to get inspired, giving you the opportunity to ask some really interesting sailors who've done some really interesting things that might make you go, wow, some questions and hear what they have to say. Cool. That's the lineup. Hopefully everybody's kind of excited about that. I know I am. And so without too much further delay, I'm going to move on to just talk a little bit about an experience I've had that I feel is an opportunity that anybody could participate in, and an opportunity I think is just amazing. So I've done a lot of racing. When I came to North America, I wanted to sail in the winter, and obviously it's kind of hard in Toronto to sail in the winter unless you drive south or jump on an airplane and fly south. So I decided I wanted to do that, and this is the company that I found, NOLS. It actually used to stand for the National Outdoor Leadership School. It's kind of similar to Outward Bound. I feel most people have heard of Outward Bound. And NOLS' primary objective is to be a leadership school. But they also offer a ton of really awesome experiences that are expedition experiences. And sailing is one of those experiences. So they actually offer sailing in both Mexico, in Baja, and they also offer sailing in the Pacific Northwest, in and around Vancouver Island. So I was able to take their instructor course and actually teach for them down in Baja, and teach sailing courses down there, and also teach sailing courses in Vancouver Island. Wasn't able to do the courses in Vancouver Island in January or February, but certainly Mexico is pretty nice in January and February. So I'm going to talk in more detail about and show some photos and a little bit of video about Baja in Mexico, because I think it's actually super different to any type of sailing that I've ever experienced before, and just like a combination of awesome sailing, amazing scenery, and just wow factor. So I'm gonna just show this video really quickly, and then I think it's just 2 or 3 minutes, kind of just as an intro. There's a couple folks talking about it in here, and then I'll show you a few photos, tell you a little bit about a few of my experiences down there. Hopefully this plays.
At NOLS, we teach sailing in 2 different ways, and both will give you the skills you need to begin exploring on your own. In the Pacific Northwest and New Zealand, we teach sailing on 36-foot live-aboard keelboats. By day, these vessels will be your means of travel, and by night, they will be your home after setting anchor in a protected cove. However, in Baja, Mexico, you will learn to sail on a 22-foot open cockpit Drascom longboat that you will anchor along the shore and sleep on the beach every night. What each of these locations and boats has in common is that they are equally capable of teaching you to sail. Through classes and first-hand experience, you will learn how to read the wind and tides that affect your boat, and you will learn rigging and sail management to best harness the power of the wind. You will also learn chart reading and navigation to allow you and your course mates to explore these beautiful coastlines. Leadership curriculum on sailing courses is also unique in that there are very defined roles for each member of the crew. You will have opportunities to experience each of these roles as you become familiar with the boat, and soon you will become proficient in trimming sails and steering at the helm. Whether you choose to explore the iconic Gulf Islands of British Columbia, the desert beaches of the Baja Peninsula, or the exotic waters of Queen Charlotte Sound of New Zealand, you will come away from your course ready to further your career as a sailor. Sailing is a
I don't want to watch that again. Um,
Sailing is a traditional skill.
so I wanted to show you where Baja is. Um, so so here on the map, Baja is down in the part of Mexico that kind of sticks out in the southwestern corner, just coming off down underneath California, in the southwest corner of the U.S. And the type of sailing is expedition sailing. So we did 28 days of sailing, basically nonstop. So it's a really practical application of sailing. It's not just sailing around in a harbor. You actually are taking your boats and you're actually living and working with them for a long time. So kind of similar to cruising. And with the 36-foot keelboat, you're living on the boat. With the smaller dinghy type sailboats, you're actually traveling in the sailboat but actually living on the beaches, which was kind of an interesting combination of sailing, but then camping. So this was one of the routes we did. Obviously not following the blue line, but we actually traveled the coastline here. I think the blue line is actually quite interesting because that's the road, the main road that runs through Baja, California. And there's no real other paved road closer to the shoreline than that blue line, the east shoreline. The east shoreline was the one that we were sailing down. So you're actually pretty isolated when you're sailing in Baja. And then we also did this route, which was further south. Again, that was another 28 days. Um, the thing that's also really awesome about Baja is there's places that are absolutely isolated and untouched. You can kind of see in the middle of this map that there's a national park that has some just amazing, beautiful islands. And the thing about sailing is, and the thing about doing the coastline on a sailboat is you're able to access places that no one else can. And you're able to access places where others might only come for the day, but you get to stay overnight for as many days as you want. So we saw some really pristine beaches, pristine reefs with coral and fish, and we're able to anchor in bays that the only people from Knowles were ever going to. Very few people were going to some of these places. This is a good example of what pretty much everywhere everywhere looks like. Your backdrop is the mountains. There's beautiful sand beaches, other rock outcrops, and you can kind of just see a little boat in the back behind the little rock outcrop, and that's our boat up on the beach. So we're really getting into the beaches and into the coves, and sleeping on those beaches. So just awesome scenery and just amazing to be sailing in places that other people just weren't going and couldn't get to. Here's another image. I really like this image because I think it shows how crazy the weather can get and how strong the wind can get. You can see the white parts in the water, the white caps. There are some really strong winds. There are some really big waves in this place. So it's not easy sailing. It could be pretty challenging as well. So that just kind of adds to the mix and adds to the experience, that you're seeing these pristine beaches, but then you've also got this very unpredictable weather at times, and very challenging conditions to sail in as well. So we were sailing. This is a picture of the boat. We were sailing in these very small sailboats. You can see it's quite small. They're only 22 feet long, which is a very small boat. And there's really not a lot of protection in these boats as well, which kind of adds to the beauty of this, the simple nature of this sailing expedition. They're kind of like rowboats with masts. Um, and two masts on these boats. We could have three sails. The mast at the back was the mizzen mast with a small sail, and then we'd have a main sail and a head sail as well. We could change those sails to different sizes, which we actually often needed to do because the wind was so changeable. The beauty of these boats is you could actually row. They're a super shallow draft, so they didn't go very deep into the water, so you could get right up to the shore. So again, you could go into places where keel boats, which actually are quite deep into the water, keel boats at times. You could actually get very close to the shore, which was awesome. So we could definitely go into much smaller coves and bays than other sailors on keel boats, and we could row there, or we could actually use an outboard engine as well. We'd take an engine on the back too. The There's another picture there. You can see the oars. And there are kind of 4 or 5 people in these boats as well, with all of our provisions. Because this is a desert and it's isolated, so we would take all of our food and our water with us in the boat. So we'd have a lot of stuff in there as well. I think I really love this photo because I think it shows how interesting the weather and the water can get. It's a big area of water, and so you can and the one thing you can actually see on this boat, which I think this picture shows very well, is the front sail, the head sail, the small sail at the front on this boat is actually the smallest sail that the boat has. It's called a storm jib, and so this boat is obviously in quite a lot of wind. It's not my picture. I stole it from somewhere else or borrowed it from somewhere else, just because I liked it so much. But there was actually one of the windiest days that I experienced. We actually sailed under only the storm jib, from one of the beaches we were leaving to one of the others, and we were on the far side of an island with the wind blowing over the island. We figured we'd actually be quite protected, so we actually went for it. We thought it would be okay, and we ended up sailing under only our storm jib, and actually having to let our storm jib out sometimes and let our storm jib actually just flap in the wind, because what was happening was the wind was actually coming over the island and down through, you call them an arroyo, down through basically a ravine in the island, and picking up speed and funneling as it came down through the arroyo and actually hitting the boat. So we'd actually have to be on our toes, ready to let that even just tiny sail, you can kind of see how small it is, out, so that we didn't actually tip over too much. So it's definitely an interesting place to sail. We didn't really sail with any technology either. We didn't have there's nowhere to put any technology. There's no availability of electricity. We don't have any batteries. So the only thing that we'd take with us, we'd have VHF radios, we'd have a satellite radio, and then we actually had an AM FM radio. And the AM FM radio was the best source for weather information. There was someone who would broadcast weather information daily at a certain time over FM radio. So early in the morning, we would listen to that, and that was our best weather forecasting tool, an AM FM radio. But then at times it can look like this. So this is kind of the dream. In the day we have wind, and then at night we can pull up in an anchorage, tie off the bow and the stern of the boat, and just have beautiful flat, calm conditions within the bay that we found. There's very little light pollution in these areas, so the stars are pretty much always out and just beautiful. In the water as well, you can often see bioluminescence. That's where the water is will actually light up because of the living organisms in the water, and that also adds to the kind of the wow factor. A very beautiful place. At times tame, at times very challenging. Um, another thing I really remember about this experience is, I know in the video it talks about leadership, and in the and that is the primary goal of Knowles, is to teach leadership, but they also have, and I guess the reason I'm kind of sharing this with everybody is they also they do have a lot of younger people attending their classes, but they also have um, people who are more mature in their years attending as well. I've definitely had all age ranges on these Knowles courses, and it actually adds a lot. I've had a 72-year-old and a 68-year-old come on a 21-day hiking expedition with us, and that was actually awesome. It was really cool to have such an age range, and then we had 16-year-olds at the other end as well. So pretty awesome, and definitely they accept and welcome anybody. Um, so they do focus on leadership. One, because it's part of their mission, but two, because it's kind of necessary in this environment. These are big, heavy boats, and at times we did need to pull them out of the water. I guess that was another beautiful thing of using these boats, is that we could pull them out of the water. So if we found ourselves in a situation where the waves were coming on shore and breaking on shore, then we could actually bring the boats up onto the beach. And so we would use big fenders, like you can see in the bottom of the picture there, and we would actually roll the boats over the top of the fenders, just using manpower to pull the boats up onto the beach. One of my memories that I have is laying on a beach, everything being very calm, getting into my sleeping bag, and expecting a good night's sleep, to only be awoken at 1 a.m. By crashing waves, and my colleague waking everybody up saying, "Let's get the boats out of the water now." So everybody got up at 1 a.m. in the morning. We all had headlights on, and we all pulled these 4 boats out of the water one at a time, just using our headlamps. Again, just a really awesome experience. I mean, yeah, I didn't want to get up at 1 a.m. and pull a boat out of the water, but the sense of achievement as a group to be able to do that was yeah, just awesome. Um, the other experience I had was waiting on a beach for 3 days. We pulled the boats out of the water, and we were waiting for the surf to settle down. And that was a long 3 days because we actually had basically run out of food. So we all had to share food until we were able to launch, because we took all of our food and we took all of our water with us, and when it was gone, it was gone. So we rationed our food a little bit, we shared our food a little bit, and we made it through. But it was a little tough. Um, Super awesome diving in this area as well. So we take snorkeling gear with us, and wetsuits, and there's lots of wildlife, tons of wildlife, and lots of opportunities in these sheltered places to actually snorkel. So it's definitely part of the course, not sailing oriented, but again, it's awesome to be able to go to these remote places where there's no one, and you have the reef to yourself, and your diving buddy, and you can just snorkel around and see what you find. There's all kinds of things down there. The last couple of photos I was just going to share. Um, just some images that I really like. This is a pristine island that we stopped at. One of the only places that we needed a permit to stay, and just amazing. I really like this photo as well because it makes the boat look like it's going really fast. It's going fast for that type of boat, but not really very fast. It's probably coming down the face of a wave. But I just love the difference, or the way you can see the mountains just popping out of the water there at the back. So that was my experience. I'd encourage you to check out Knowles. It's a really awesome organization, for anyone really. And they do shorter, so they do shorter courses as well. I should mention that. So they were starting to do 10-day long sailing expeditions, that were the same type of sailing in these. They're called Drascombe longboats, 22 feet Drascombe longboats. So they do 10-day expeditions, but they also do all the way up to 28 days. And even just to see what they're doing, I think it's worth checking out their website. They have a whole host of other options too, and it's definitely been a very memorable experience, and something at some point I hope to do again. I hope when travel restrictions are lifted, and I don't have a 2-year-old. But both stopping me from doing it again. Cool. I didn't talk too much about this type of sailing either. I obviously did do the Pacific Northwest sailing with them as well. Again, another awesome experience. Not too much snorkeling involved with that. It's a little bit colder, but still just as impressive an environment. And also another great way to learn some sailing skills. Both great ways to learn some sailing skills. I would say I learned a lot about my sailing and what I did and didn't know, and learned from people who had a completely different set of sailing skills than me, when doing these courses. So really an awesome experience. I just want to throw this link up here. That's the link to the event page for these sessions. So if you wanted to sign up for the other sessions, if you haven't already, then that's the web page. I'm just asking for a $25 donation, and like I said, it goes to the camp completely, and helps send some kids to camp for free this summer. So check out that link. It's got all the information on the dates, the speakers, the times, and you should also feel free at any time, if you would like, to send me an email. I'll throw it in the chat just here. I think at this point it's 7:10. I'll open it up and see if anybody has a question. I can see kind of some questions. Abe asked me if I went to the Falklands, like to fight in the Falklands. That was 1986 when I was born. So I guess the simple answer to that is no. Monica, you asked me if I saw a lot of kayakers. Yes, there are lots of kayakers in Baja. And Knowles does kayaking classes or courses and expeditions as well. I'd say kayaking is probably, there's a lot of keelboat sailors in Baja as well. I think one of the beautiful things about kayaking and about this type of expedition sailing that I was talking about is you really can get into small spaces, and those small spaces are just incredible because no one else is going there. So yes, absolutely, we saw a lot of kayakers. Not tons though. We never shared a beach with anybody. Yeah, so we have Steve is asking me what's the minimum level of medical training by an expedition host. Wilderness first responder. It's an 8-day, actually I think it's 10-day. It's a 10-day, 10 days of first aid training. and Knowles offers that as a class, but there's also a couple of companies in Canada that offer it as well. That's a pretty standard. I think that's a pretty standard qualification for expeditions, like canoe expeditions. I think probably not for summer camps. Summer camps probably have a lower standard, I think, but across Outward Bound and Knowles, yeah, wilderness first responder. It's a good course as well. It's a lot of fun. Done it twice. It's awesome. Yes, this was saltwater. Abe is asking me, what do we do for drinking water? We carried big 5-gallon drums of drinking water with us. So we filled those drums up before we left, and then we tied them into the boat. So they were kind of tied to the floorboards of the boat. We also had coolers with our food. And the boats can capsize. They're not keel boats. They are centerboard boats, and it's kind of considered a big deal if one of these boats capsizes. Like they write an incident report on it. I did not. Well, we did practice capsizes with these boats, but we took everything out and laid it on the beach before we did a practice capsize. There was a lot of fear that if there was a capsize, that the boat could sink. So we did everything within our power. It was one of our risk management strategies to not capsize the boat. Monica asked, how much drinking water can you carry for 28 days? We did not carry water for 28 days. We would typically carry enough food and water for 10 days. 10 days was about the limit of our capacity. So we would typically sail from a road head. We would typically sail from a place where the road meets, and sometimes it was a dirt road. A dirt road meets the beach, to another place where the dirt road met the beach. And so we would meet a truck in 10 days down the coast, and they would supply us with new drinking water and new rations. And that's how we get to 28 days. So we typically do 2 re-rations. It kind of really depended on where roads were available. So sometimes we do like 4 days, and then we take a ration, and then we do like 10 and 10, and then another 4 at the end. Yeah, it would just depend on what was possible. Dariush, I think I answered your question. Did I answer your question? Okay, good. Fiona, not Fiona, Paul, right? It's not Fiona. It says Fiona, Paul, again. What month of the year were you in Baja, and what was the weather like? I did a course in November, and I did a course in January. In November, it was not very windy in comparison to January, because it was kind of the end of the summer. It was definitely hot, and there were bugs around in November. It was nice because the water was warm, so that was good for diving. But yeah, definitely not so much wind in November, and definitely warmer, and definitely more bugs. In January, you definitely noticed that it was colder. I mean, it wasn't freezing during the day. During the day, you could get away with, you know, long sleeves, long pants, and then in the at night it got cold in January for sure. Like we were in like negative degrees sleeping bags, like -10-degree sleeping bags, and we were definitely wearing sweaters and thermals at night. And the water was cold enough in the winter that we would wear a wetsuit when we went diving. And for me, I wore like a long sleeve, like a full length wetsuit when I was diving in January. The advantage of January for sure was it was definitely windier, so we were definitely able to move under sail power more often. In November, we were moving around at times under human power with oars and at times the engine. Whereas January, we were definitely able to sail a lot more. I don't remember fully whether January was the time that we weren't able to move because of the wind, but I would guess that January was probably the time where we actually had some really strong wind days where we couldn't move at all because of the wind. Luciana, during your term in the Navy through the Suez Canal and Red Sea, was it related to piracy calls? We just went through the Suez Canal to get to the Indian Ocean, because we were doing two operations. One, I'd have to kill you if I told you, and the the other one, yes, we were doing anti-piracy. It was actually, except for not really anti-piracy, I was actually on a submarine, and so you can't go through you can't go, before this question comes up, you can't go through the Suez Canal in a submarine under the water. You have to be on the surface. So we went through the Suez Canal. We weren't really doing anything through the Suez Canal. It was just to move. It's just the most efficient way to move from the Mediterranean through to the Indian Ocean. And then, yeah, once we were there, we actually did dived operations close to Somalia, and we were doing actually surveillance. The most useful thing a submarine is good for is surveillance. So we actually had translators on board, and we were listening to conversations and recording those conversations. Probably shouldn't have told you that either. Yeah, I watched an airplane drop a ransom for a cog. It was at a time where, well, I mean, I guess this is still happening, but it was a time where they were taking big cargo ships, and they'd taken a big cargo ship, and we watched an airplane come in and drop a ransom for one of the ships. That was the most interesting day. The others were a lot of sky and water. Dariush, visual sailing, or did you have charts? Yeah, it was a lot of visual sailing. We had land charts only. So most of the time we used the shape of the coastline and any landmarks, of which there are not many landmarks. Like, it's literally just mountains. So it's like, okay, well, are we close to that super high mountain, or are we close to like this little bay that we can see? Is there an island that we're going past? So yeah, navigation was definitely pretty tricky. I think we used a lot of like speed, distance, time as well. So we would actually calculate how fast we were going using a rope. Super accurate. So we would use a rope with knots, and we would figure out how fast we were going using the rope with knots, and then figure out if we think that we'd gone far enough for that day as we had planned. So pretty low tech, but pretty interesting. A lot of guesswork, a lot of kind of like, yeah, problem solving. It was pretty interesting. The sailing in the Pacific Northwest was a lot more technical, because there was a lot more there's a lot more landmarks around Vancouver Island and Vancouver. So we actually had proper nautical charts, and we actually had proper navigation instruments, and we actually had GPS and this kind of stuff. So we actually had like log speed and stuff. So we were actually, it was a little bit more technical for the Pacific Northwest sailing. Mexico, not much to go on. Yeah, just cactus everywhere. Steve, what was the average typical time on water in a day versus time on shore? What was your longest time on water? We didn't. I think this is pretty typical of sailors. Kayakers get up really. There was a joke it's not really a joke. Kayakers tend to get up at like 4 a.m. and go kayaking because it's very flat and not windy at 4 a.m. We tended to get up at like a reasonable hour, like 9 a.m. and then we'd go sailing by like 11. And then definitely at times we would be pulling off close to sunset. We've definitely like set camp up at sunset, which I'm trying to remember when sunset would be in Baja. Time is kind of this like, I don't know, I guess time is like, you don't really like, sunset is the thing that you're using. But I don't really remember what that time was. I don't know why. It's kind of a strange thing. But yeah, like we would definitely go from when we launched all day. But that probably happened like 50%, if not less than 50%. There's definitely a lot of time built into the expedition for actually like loading, unloading, anchoring, finding the anchorage, like actually scouting it out a little bit. There's definitely also time for like sailing practice in there as well. Everybody actually gets, as the expedition proceeds, the idea is to be able to hand over a lot of the responsibility to the students. And so the idea is for the leaders, the instructors, to actually teach and then sit back and not really do very much in the way of like actually launching the boat and navigating and then bringing the boat into the anchorage safely. The idea is actually to move the students more towards doing that completely autonomously. I don't know where I was going with that thought, but there's definitely time built in for other things. There's time built in for setting up camp, and there's time built in for cooking meals, and there's sometimes, like, we did hikes. If there was a tall mountain, we would go up a big mountain. There's time built in for diving. So yeah, definitely not just sailing, and definitely not just move from place to place. There's definitely time built in for other stuff. Dariush, what is one sailing related thing you really want to do? What's the top thing on your sailing bucket list? But I think I want to. I like, maybe part of setting up these these stories is to find out. uh, I don't know. I think probably if a sailing opportunity presented itself, then I would be interested. I would definitely consider all options. Um, I think one thing I would really like to do is be able to just recreational sail in some places like Baja on a bigger boat with my family. I think that would be an aspiration for me. Because I think the really awesome thing about sailing is, and maybe this is my number one thing, is I think sailing can take you to places that other people can't go to. I like that. I like the idea that you can be somewhere that is very isolated, and so Baja definitely called to me from that perspective, and definitely when I've had conversations with my partner about sailing, I've said, let's go to Baja, because it can be windy and it can be really challenging, but it's just amazing. It's just a super cool place. So yeah, I think see some really excellent places on a sailboat, on a bigger sailboat, and relax. I did have an aspiration at one point to sail across to do like the mini transat or something like that, but I think that's out. I don't have that kind of money. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Monica. Is there any further questions from anybody? Yeah, the mini transat's very expensive, Dariush. I'm not sure either of us have the money for that. Okay, cool. Well, thanks everybody. If you're not signed up for the other events, then please do consider it. Also, if you enjoyed this, maybe what would be really helpful is sharing this with anybody else you know who could be interested. The next talk is Paul Howard. who's going to tell us about his sailing adventures. I'm really excited for that. I'll stick around for another few minutes, but thanks everybody for joining this evening, and it was great to see you, and see you on March 3rd. Thank you.